Hello, everybody. Welcome back into another episode of Debate Night. We've got a great show, some great topics, and some great analysts to discuss them. No Silas tonight, so if you're wondering why there's no fancy transitions, he's on vacation, and therefore they're stuck with me as host and producer. So luckily, I can still control most of the important functions because Silas has set it up for me so nicely. But let's get into things. Brodie Smith, man of the people, what do you have for us?
Yeah, man of the people. I don't know what happened last week, but the comment section went off. So I don't know if it was a weird episode or
big week.
I don't know if something happened where it really just got people fired up, but the comment section was on fire. We got 3 top comments here. The first one says, the only thing more egregious than the PDGA is Goose's C1X putting. He had the same number of misses as Yuli did.
How did he catch that straight? We didn't even talk about him.
I don't know.
And the same number of misses as Yuli did attempts. That's
correct.
Brutal.
Correct. C1X, yeah.
Oh.
Another person said, I used to find Brodie's yelling obnoxious, but we need the passion, especially for something like that foot fault call. So I stand corrected. It's worth it. LMAO. And last one says foot fault should be a warning situation unless the card/marshal agrees it was intentionally done to improve the angle. And for all the haters out there that says I shouldn't be on a show talking about disc golf because I don't play disc golf, well, sucks to be you. I'm back, baby.
He's back. He's got a video out there. Check it out. Hunter's back as well. His webcam's back. Figured it out before the show today.
Figured it out. Yeah, Brodie claims he's training for USDGC, but he's really just training for the Content Creator Challenge out at Des Moines. Brodie and I, doubles partners, we're going to take it all down. We're definitely the scariest team. I made sure I told Brodie, you got to hold off. Don't practice any disc golf. I want them to think you're not going to be good. And then as soon as they announce it, let them know that you're going to be in form. That way we can get paired up and dominate this thing. So my plan worked to perfection. I'm sorry to all the other teams that we had to do it to you. But if you're going to be in Des Moines, come check it out. It's going to be a blast.
There are some tough teams out there.
J Million and Gannon are killing all of us, and there's nothing we can really do about it. I think so, at least. Gary is back. Gary rushed in, just got home, in to fill in for our spot here.
Yeah. Hey, big shout out to OG Ross. He and I met for the first time ever. We both played at the Cosmic Open this past weekend. So the debate energy was high. We were doing rebuttals to everyone. If they said like, "Oh, the sky's blue," we're like, "No, it isn't. It's purple." We were on it, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Love it. There are many of us now. And then Hannah as well, rounding out the cast tonight.
Yep, I'm excited to be back. A little bit last minute, but I'm excited for the topics. Then I think we'll have a good episode.
Everybody's last minute. Well, so it's going to be off the cuff, but that's okay because the topics just kind of lined up so that it's they're really built for some off the cuff arguments. So let's hop into our first one here. This was kind of our real big news break of the week. Obviously with the off week, nothing crazy happened, so we've got some fan submitted topics, but this was something that did break and has quite some interesting implications, I think. So if you missed it, the Disc Golf Pro Tour recently announced a new means of playoff qualification to try and enhance the importance of the events. If you didn't see this, basically your finishing place at playoff events can guarantee you a spot in regardless of your points. So what are your initial thoughts on this? And do you see any competitive or logistical issues, Brodie?
Initial thoughts, I don't care. However, I figured that was probably going to be a bad answer as far as points goes. So I started racking my brain around it. And I was like, let me actually write some notes down. So I wrote some notes. The main reason of why I don't care is the fact that they literally change every year. When you start changing something every year, you're constantly changing it. At a certain point in time, people will just stop paying attention to you. And we're not even doing like small minor changes. We're like doing big stuff to where all of a sudden now like people just get like a golden ticket. Like it's America's Got Talent. And you click the button, all of a sudden you get to go through to the finals. I don't like that, but let me break it down. So a few years back too, I remember something really weird happened at Maple Hill when I don't think it was the second playoff event. I think it was the year that Maple Hill was the first playoff event. And like people didn't qualify, but they had like a play-in for people to qualify. And then some people got upset about that. And I was standing around. I think John Nicholson was trying to, that was when he was still touring, was with me. And like, it was a really weird situation where like, these guys did not qualify. Why are they getting into the tournament? Gun to my head, though, I do think the change kind of sucks. And I'll read the last couple points real quick. The whole point of this tour championship was finding who played the best throughout the year. Now you could have someone that completely sucked during the entire year, and then they have one good weekend and they make it in. If they wanted to go the route of like March Madness, have like a play-in game. Have something where like a bunch of people kind of that have a good weekend or whatever get to play in, and then maybe one of them make it or something like that. I'm not a big fan. And then there's some other stuff that I would love to ask you guys questions on maybe at the end once everyone talks.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if anybody would oppose it, but I think that there will be some differing opinions. I'm curious to see where this goes. Hunter, what do you think?
I overall agree with Brodie's point, especially about you constantly change it. It just makes it confusing for the people at home. I don't overall hate the idea. Mainly because of the format of the Tour Championship, where you have the stroke head start, because what this does is it's going to put them at the very bottom of the totem pole. So the likelihood of someone being 10 strokes back of, let's just call it what it is, Gannon Buhr at the end of this season, and being able to make that up to where they're the Tour champion, is it a possibility now? Yes. Very, very unlikely. If that happens, that would just suck. But let's be real, they're going to change whatever this is next year anyways. So what I do like about it is more from this fact that it adds to the playoff events. Now, what is the best case scenario? Best case scenario is probably that the playoff events go out the window, because up to this point, playoff events haven't really meant anything, and this is them trying to make them mean something. But to Brodie's point, to make them mean something, what they need to do is actually make the cuts mean something. Yeah. Because if you don't have the cuts mean anything, then it doesn't matter if people can win and get in. None of that matters, because it's like, oh, if I place in the top X, Y, or Z, I get into Maple Hill. Or if the European players that get a bunch of points from over there decide not to come to the playoffs, I still get into Maple Hill. So my performance means jack squat. Like I said on Grip Lock, but I'll reiterate here. I mean, last year you had Justin Rozak at 150th, the lowest person you can possibly find on the Pro Tour standings, playing at MVP. That's supposed to be the top 80. That shouldn't happen. If that's able to happen, then all of these little rule changes mean absolutely nothing, and now have just brought more people in. And what happens when the guy in 150th all of a sudden makes it to the Tour Championship? That won't make any sense, because he should never even been in the first playoff event.
Okay, Gary, do you agree? Is the Cinderella situation not a good one?
Yeah, well, we'll start off with the good thing, I guess, and that's I can appreciate the fact that they want to bring some more storylines to the event. And I think getting to see players who are outside the line play aggressive to win is kind of cool. Gives people a chance. But if we're being really real here, it's not like it's going to benefit anyone super deep in the rankings. I can't see anyone outside like the top 40 or even 50 catching in on this. Also, this is like the fourth year in a row that a change has been made to the Tour Championship. Change is a good thing sometimes if you want to, but if you want to build prestige, you've got to let the event cook a little bit and sharpen like the finer nuances of the product. Also, storylines are great if you can show the storylines. We better get at GMC and MVP this year. We better get, some eyes and cameras on the people who are on the bubble. It can't just be some graphic in passing they put on the screen and hope that we know what's going on. And another thing is, why do they have these announcements mid-season? I mean, I know it's not necessarily like affecting anything, but like, what are we doing in the off season? Like, why can't we lay out goals at the start of the season that give players a chance to know what they're chasing during the year and let that be that? And if we're being really truthful here, this just feels like a crafty way to increase the field size. I mean, more registrations, and hopefully there's a bigger purse, but that kind of gets distributed to first place. Last year at GMC, they had 88 MPO people, 41 FPO players. This change would make 51 more competitors if they sign up, and that last part remains to be seen.
Yeah, they definitely like the idea of bigger purse, more players. Hannah, what are your thoughts? Are you on one side or the other of this one?
Yeah, so overall, I do like it, just because I'm just obsessed with disc golf, and so the more coverage, the more storylines, the more people involved, the more prestige that an event tries to have or is able to maintain. I just love all of it. But I do understand kind of Brodie and Hunter's points of like the people way down the list, the lower mid, and the low tier players. They're now having these opportunities that, yes, Cinderella stories are cool, but like, are they really supposed to be in those positions anyway? Like, that's just how you play throughout the rest of the year. You play to do your best and to get into these top positions. So I kind of understand that, but I also agree with Gary's point, and it's one that I had written down of like, why is the announcement coming now? I love that they're trying to implement it this year, but maybe they do need to let the playoffs just ride out for a year or two and just let it be and see what happens over time, as opposed to changing things year after year after year. And to make that announcement now as opposed to January, some players already have their schedules set. Maybe they're not planning these events, and now they have a chance to play at GMC, which could give them a chance at MVP and in the championship. So now people are trying to rework their schedules a little bit and pay more attention to the later half of the season. I do hope that all of this added potential excitement, or all these people added to these fields, I hope it adds the excitement for the fans, and that the fans will try to buy into it a little bit more. Because I do think they're trying to do a great thing of adding prestige to these playoffs, but right now they're not that important, and they don't mean as much as they want them to.
Yes, Brodie.
Okay, so I was going to say a couple rebuttals. First one is with Hunter, with the, I get it, like these guys are probably, if they get in, they're going to start 10 shots behind Gannon this year, but next year they might just do away with that completely, and they might go into the Nathan Queen thing, right? Also, to me, one of the things they said in the article of why they did this is they wanted to make it to where people have the chance to like move up. They felt like there was people that were in events that couldn't move up based off of their finish. Maybe fix your points distribution. Like if you have someone in the field at GMC and they win the tournament, maybe they should get the points to advance. Like fix your points distribution. You don't need to add something here. Like you should make it to where if you win a tournament, you get so many points that it's going to be nearly impossible for you to miss out on the next playoff event. And then the last thing I said is I read this thing, and does this sound odd to you? Maybe I misread this, but it says players must be ranked in the top 100 MPO or top 50 FPO after the PDGA Pro Worlds to qualify for the first playoff event, the Green Mountain Championship. Registration will open to the top 120 MPO and 60 FPO if the field is not full after the initial registration window.
Yeah. That's my point of why none of this matters, because what they're going to do is we open to the top 100, only 70 register. We have 30 more spots. Let's open in the next 120.
What's the
only
point?
5 more register. Let's open in the next 150.
It's just
that's
like
what happened last
where
year.
there's priority registration, just like any other event.
Yeah.
That's to me, like I get what they were trying to do of let's try to make these playoff events mean a little more. I think Brodie's idea makes way more sense. I think if someone wins, they still get into the tour championship, but even let's make the playoff events points way heavier to where even the people jockeying for position, these mean more. So it's like if I come in top 10 and I was 4 spots back, I might be able to jump in, or what? I don't know. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah,
but,
you should make it. You should make it to where the points matter for sure more, but they shouldn't matter more than the majors. Like a second place at Worlds.
If we're trying to do the playoffs, I think that's
what they have
problem.
right now. They do a second place at Worlds is worth less than a second place at GMC.
Yeah, but that's the problem. That makes my point. Sense. Is I think they're focusing their time and energy in the wrong place.
Yeah,
which is like the playoffs. We shouldn't be trying to make the playoffs be more prestigious or whatever. Like the fix for the playoffs is just have a hard cut. And it's just if you're top 100, if you're top 80, that's that. If only 60 of the top 100 register, what are you supposed to do? Like only 60 of the top 100 registered. So what? That's all who qualified. Like USDGC, they're not going to randomly start handing out more entries because like people who didn't qualify.
When they're so dependent on the buy-in.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is they just have the wrong idea. I think about they care about the purse size so much more than the payout, and it's like. The purse size with added cash doesn't affect the payout that drastically with how current disc golf payout works. Because all it means is you have to pay more people. So it just doesn't work that way.
And this also could be one of the few events in the year where it's like everyone in the event is good. If you look at like Cascade Challenge this weekend, there's 20, 30 people that have no chance of winning.
Yeah.
There's no chance at winning. And so it's like, that could set this apart of where it's like, no, every single person that's in this event has a chance to win is good.
Yeah.
That to me that makes it a little bit different.
That's where I think they should have put this, but they're just trying to make the playoffs mean something more. And maybe that's the problem, is if you're in 100th place, there's no way for you to get into the top 80. So it's like, well, I'm not going to Vermont. My season's over. And so it's like, well, at least now
who's on this players
you
council?
can get in there, but
I don't
9 players.
know.
I don't know.
Who's on this?
Yuli is.
Who's on
two
this?
of them?
Yeah.
Who's on this players council?
Yeah, Yuli is.
You can grill Yuli on Tour Life tonight.
I
or
mean,
last night.
I
Let's get
will.
Ella on the show.
I will be talking to him about it, because it's like, from a player standpoint, this doesn't make any sense.
You should apply for a position on the council.
No, I should not, and I don't want to.
Yeah, it's what needs to be done.
No, it does not.
could be a
No,
voice of
thank
reason.
you. No.
Get on
No.
the PDGA board of directors.
How funny would it be though?
Change from within.
To waste my time? No, it would not be.
Oh, you think they have like long meetings? Do you think they like
probably
no,
do, Trev, let's be
no.
honest.
They actually probably do.
They probably-
I'm actually,
ask
and they
Yuli
probably
about
put it
their
on
meetings.
PJ. They probably put it on PJ's time.
Yeah,
It's
they're
like
probably flying them out
probably.
to Geneva.
Yeah,
They'll
it's
all
just
sit down.
probably.
5
They
minutes
get
of high
catering
five
too from Jimmy John's. All right, moving on. We've got a spirited fan submitted topic here. This was in relation to our when we were talking about last week, basket sizes and the putting, the difficulty of putting, and everybody was kind of consensus that putting should be more difficult, at least in that group. This guy wants to take it to more of an extreme. This is a mouthful, so bear with me. And the best part is he put his name at the end of it. Like, these are anonymous submissions. This guy wanted people to know. Here we go. I think what disc golf needs is all caps, get rid of the chains. Talk about bringing touch into the game around the putting greens. This would make even 10-footers interesting. The point is, these pros become so robotic, being able to fire putts at a vertical backboard. Even with marksman baskets, it's too easy. Do you see golf having backboards behind the hole in the green? No. You need that feel and touch, and I think it'd be sick to see everyone developing lofty pitch putts to have to land it in a chainless basket. No more worries about having to contemplate green creation with guardians and elevation. The disc can definitely stay in the basket after landing, or maybe make it a little deeper in order to maintain the made putt. This is what needs to happen to make the sport of disc golf harder and way more competitive. # remove the chains, Brian Lykish. So there it is. # remove the chains. That is a movement in disc golf, apparently started by Brian. Hunter, is there even anything remotely sane about that?
I get the sentiment, right? Like, would it make putting harder and have more touch? Yes. I don't fully agree with it. First off, let's just break down a few of these points. Does golf have backboards behind the hole in every green? Well, to the extent of probably ratio wise close to a marksman basket would be the flag when you're chipping, that you have that so you can hit it and it can drop in. So checkmate there, Brian. Now, maybe instead we need to be removing the chains when we get onto the green. Maybe that's where we need to go. Pull the flag out. I'm surprised he didn't go past, like, why do we even need a basket? Let's just have a hole in the ground. Let's play foot golf and just slide it up in there. That would require touch. The big thing I disagree with, well, first off, I think we can all, it would just, it's not going to work that well, because bouncing on metal, it's going to bounce out. It's not a great idea. It's going to look really weird. So let's ignore the get rid of the chains. I do want to attack the no more worries about having to contemplate green creation. That's what golf does, right? They got rid of the backboard and they just are like, well, now that you pull the flag out, we don't have to worry about the green at all. We don't need bunkers. Let's get rid of all of that. Of course not. Like, you still need what disc golf needs more than anything is intricate green creation and defense around the basket, regardless of the basket size, because that can increase the difficulty of putting, but more importantly, increase the difficulty of upshots and make upshots way more hard. Because even if you have just a hole from 150 feet, pros are still putting it close enough they can drop it in. So you're still not solving that much. Great idea though, Brian. I like the passion behind it.
Gary, are you # remove the chains?
No, not great idea, Brian. I love the enthusiasm, but this is just ridiculous. I mean, you guys talked about this stuff ad nauseum last episode, but I guess we're here again. First of all, the disc crashing into chains, that sound is incredible. It's like right up there with things like the thunderous volleyball spike or a slap shot in hockey, or the best sound in sports, the snap of a basketball net when you get the perfect jump shot. We're not taking the chains away. Here's the thing, about tone poles. we're trying to make our sport seem serious and have a bunch of guys running around going, boom. That's just not going to work. Also, we don't want players throwing lofty pitch putts. While it would happen rarely, you would have no crazy like downtown putts. Everyone's going to be laying up to make little cornhole tosses into the basket, and a lot of the misses are going to be close. It's going to eliminate a lot of the drama that missed putts get you when they kind of soar past the basket. And I'm not against tweaking the basket to make putting more difficult, like we talked about, you guys talked about last week. Make the target area smaller, maybe adjust the cage, elevate the basket. But the real answer to the difficulty is exactly what you guys said last week, and that's make the greens tougher to play on and to approach to. Give us more undulation, close OB, maybe some water, hazard areas around the green, and let's make players think about their approaches, have decisions to make with their putts, and that's just not going to happen when we turn the game back into let's go hit the sign pole.
Your tone pole impression there was really good. Yeah, that's solid. Hannah, thoughts on the remove the chains movement?
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely wild suggestion. And maybe it's fun for like an all-star event or like a couple baskets at like a putting course. But there's definitely some problems with it. And Gary kind of took a lot of my notes. But for one, it looks really strange. And a basket without chains makes me think that belongs at an abandoned course and not at a pro tour event. Two, yeah, everyone's going to be laying up their putts and are putting scared. So all the chances for three putting and all of that drama just kind of goes out the window. And three, like Gary pointed out, it removes the sound of the chains, and that is such a special sound to hear throughout the woods at your local course and everywhere. So I don't like the idea of that just going away. But look, I'm all for testing out new things, but if we're making wild suggestions, why not just have balance beams instead of T-pads? If you fall off, bam, instant stroke. Or even better suggestion, we could cut out a portion of the bottom of the basket. And the question for that is why? Because in golf, you have that anticipation of the ball kind of edging around the hole in the ground. Well, in disc golf, the disc's moving too fast into the chains to have that anticipation. So if there's a hole in the basket, the disc could hit the chains and fall down. And if it does, then it's out of the basket and it doesn't count.
Wow, that would be revolutionary. That sounds like a video we might film at some point.
Have
honestly,
we thought about crocodiles below the balance beam?
Yeah, now we're talking. Yeah, we're talking. Brodie, would removing the chains would it be the death of the sport?
Well, I don't know about that, but I did play a course that was infected by ticks. The city didn't go out and cut the grass. We were unaware of this when we went out there, but it did lead me to an interesting thought, because one of the baskets, the grass was starting to grow up above the basket, and I thought, what if you just let the grass grow? Because we don't like the look of like these fake trees and the mozzarella sticks. Just let the grass grow on one side of the basket, and that just eliminates that entire side of the basket if we want to make putting a little bit harder or approach shots. But here's the thing, Brian, I'm not great at coming up with ideas, but I am really good at making bad ideas a lot better. So I think what you could do with this, you remove the pole, then you place a wooden board on the bottom of the basket, and on said wooden board, the only thing that people like more than the sound of chains is what?
Cowbell.
A good tombstone. You put soft grass on top of the wooden board. So now those aces of where someone's throwing a spike hyzer into the basket, it just tombstones straight into the soft grass of the basket. That would be the sickest ace ever. That would be sick. And I think
sound
honestly,
would just explode through the course.
Well, I didn't say the sound. I didn't say the sound.
You just like the look of it.
People freak out about tombstones.
They do.
Trevor. People
Every
take photos.
hand thrower just got so excited, Brodie.
I'm thinking about how
Landsberg.
many the ace photos people would have with tombstones in the basket. People would go nuts on it.
Something to think about. That honestly sounds like a trend that disc golfers would start making almost planters in the bottom of their baskets, like put some sod down, maybe grow some flowers in there.
Well, PGA did that one time out in Utah with Worlds. They
around the basket,
the flowering, the flowers.
Sponsor a basket.
Adam Hammis almost took one of those flower beds straight out.
Yeah, you just beautify the baskets. That's the real movement. Hey, shout out to Brian for putting himself out there. I'm not sure you're going to gain much support, but if you do, make a Facebook group and I'll join. I think
Build
it'd
a
be
course,
fun.
Brian. Build a course.
Yeah, honestly, build a course. It's never been done before. Like Gary said, we've never been at this place in our sport. All right, back onto topic a little bit. So as we are talking about whether or not we should remove chains, that brings me to this next point, which is the off seasons in disc golf and the lull in the season. So there's been quite a few breaks this year. We have a lot of swings on the tour and some majors thrown in there that have created it. I want to know, has the Pro Tour had too many weeks off this season? Does this allow hype to build, so a positive standpoint there, or does the excitement of the season deflate in the meantime? If it is an issue, how would you change the tour to accommodate less breaks in the action? So you think this is a strength or weakness, Gary?
Yeah, if a break means a week with no DGN coverage, last year there were 7 breaks in total, and this year there's going to be 9 breaks. And I think it feels more drastic because 5 of those breaks have already happened this year. Also, compared to last year, the rest of the breaks throughout the rest of the season are spread out a lot nicer. Breaks can be, I think, beneficial for obvious reasons. 3 breaks this year are before a major, and we want those breaks because we want the pros to have extra time to get prepared. We want the courses to be cleaner. We want everything, the infrastructure to all be set up. It makes the major much better. Also, breaks make the travel easier for all the pros that are moving from place to place. And the idea of building or deflating hype, I think, comes down to the marketing and the prep around the event. So if we come out of an event and we start gassing up the next one in 2 weeks, the storylines, the course looks great, the field's super ready to go, and all the hype is built really well, I think that's awesome. But if the marketing falters, that's where it can fall flat a bit, because I think there are 3 types of fans in disc golf. There's the people who watch the majors, there are the casual watchers, then there's the diehards. And here's the thing, the diehards knew that in break 1 this year we had GoThro's inaugural event. In break 2 we had GoThro at Persimmon Ridge. In break 3 GoThro at Eagles Crossing. In break 4 that was for major prep. And then this past weekend we knew that there were 3 great events to watch: Tim Selinsky Masters with 25K views per video, Masters Cup with a stacked field at 29K views for video, and the Cosmic Open for the Simon and Maple Hill fanboys at 28K per video. The real question is how to get the casual fans to watch more disc golf. Maybe DGN and the PDGA can encourage more people to support other channels. Watching Gatekeeper or Ace Run Pro on an off week doesn't hurt Jomez. It builds the stories and gets more eyes on the sport.
Yeah, definitely still been a lot of disc golf played. Hannah would know about that. She is one of the diehards for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, so a lot of my points are similar to what Gary's are. I do think the Pro Tour does a great job with the way they offer the off weeks, because even though I am a diehard who would love disc golf every weekend live, you can't sustain that. The Pro Tour right now, as it stands, starts at the end of February and ends with match play finale in November. So it's almost 10 months that people are, majority of that time, on the road, maybe out of the country, like traveling from place to place. So you just can't expect them to play in a 3 to 4 day tournament every single weekend. But as a diehard fan, yes, want Pro Tour coverage every week, but the off weeks allow, like Gary pointed out, for more storylines to build. So I think that can be a great thing for building the excitement and the anticipation if the marketing is there, because there's so much content happening in disc golf, but is it getting in front of the right eyes? And is the Pro Tour pushing what they need to the way they should in between these events? We see for the more casual fans, maybe during these off weeks, you can entice them or build up anticipation for the next event, because yes, there was a 2-week break, but now we have this major, this other thing coming up, and it seems less overwhelming or more exciting to them because they're like, oh, everyone's been preparing for this, I'm going to watch this event now. And I think it also helps the players and the staff overall, because then they have a break too, because they need it. Our sport exists because of people traveling around away from their families and their homes to play these tournaments so we can watch them. And if they get overwhelmed or exhausted, they stop traveling, they stop playing, and the sport doesn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things on tour that are to accommodate those players. Brodie, do you see this as something that helps things out on the tour, or is it kind of hurting things?
Yeah, I think since I've been 2 of these, there's 3 people involved here, right? There's the players, there's the staff, and the Disc Golf Pro Tour, Disc Golf Network, and then there's the fans. I've been 2 of those now, and I think from both sides, I think it's actually a good thing. And, from a player standpoint, I think if you go week after week after week, it's just not sustainable long term, especially when you're driving and going to events, sometimes having to go across the country. It's just not sustainable for everyone. From the staff side as well, I think They also will end up getting to the point of where events, mistakes will happen. Events will start looking not as great. They don't have enough time to prepare. And then from the fan standpoint too, I think the big thing here is there are going to be some weekends that are just going to be duds. Like I think this weekend would have been a great weekend for the Disc Golf Pro Tour to have an off week versus last weekend. I think they should have flip-flopped. I don't know how much they're looking at the schedule, because the biggest crossover I think disc golf has is golf. I think that is the biggest sports crossover, and this weekend coming up is a major in golf. And so you're going to have a lot of those people, those casual fans you guys are talking about, they're not going to be caring about disc golf this weekend. They're going to be watching golf, where last weekend it was a smaller golf tournament. You might catch more eyes there. So I think that probably should be looked at a little bit more than maybe is the off week going to like create hype and all that.
Yeah, they've scheduled their All-Star game on Super Bowl Sunday, so I don't really think they're super concerned with that.
I don't think they're paying attention. Yeah.
No. Hunter, what do you think?
I think, there's been a lot of good points made, and I think overall the off weeks, I think that it's something that you could see being a problem. Like it almost feels like it should be a problem, that it's actually not really. I do think it matters how they're doing it as far as marketing and stuff goes, but I have a different perspective on it that I'll just bring up an alternate point, which is absence makes the heart grow fonder. And what I mean by that is what these off weeks have allowed is for certain tournaments to not be on tour. And what that does is I believe a lot of these tournaments are coming back to tour. And when those tournaments come back to tour, it's probably going to bump certain tournaments now off tour, or at least courses. One being Jonesboro Open. Another one we've missed so far is Texas State's. Another reason it feels like there's been more off weeks up to this point is U.S. Women's hasn't happened yet. It already had happened last year. But DDO is another one where when we have Jonesboro, DDO, Texas State's, we have these all the time, then I don't have to explain to anyone that we're not going to be excited for Emporia if it was next weekend. But you give it a year or two off of tour, and now there's a storyline of Emporia coming back, and there's at least a better chance of people being excited. Same thing with Jonesboro, probably a better example because Jonesboro is at least a solid course to watch. And when Jonesboro's off of tour, then next year it comes back. Not only is it for me as a fan, I'm like, oh, they haven't been to Jonesboro in 2 years. I'm excited to watch them play it again. Also for the local area, I feel like it's going to be easier to draw a crowd if it's a pro tour comes here once every 2 or 3 years instead of a pro tour's here every single year. So I think that from that perspective, if it means, to Gary's point, there's only 2 more breaks and it allows us to have a little bit more schedule rotation where you have the Kansas City wide open coming in and going out, or at least the courses. I don't know if we necessarily should have the whole event coming in and going out, but at least the courses. I think that can be refreshing and maybe cause even more storylines 2 or 3 years from now.
I think that only makes sense if like you have like 35 great venues and 35 great tournaments and you can cycle them in and out. Like Kansas City's a better tournament, a better course than DDO.
Imagine when it's off tour and comes back. The excitement.
But honestly, that might just create more frustration than excitement.
Don't kick off off Kansas City and take us to DDO.
Yeah, I have a feeling DDO is gone, but I don't. Yeah. But Jonesboro, I think, is going to come back. I think Jonesboro, Music City might rotate or something.
I just don't think like taking like, oh, we're not going to play Maple Hill this year because we really want to hype it up next year. I think that's a terrible idea.
I don't think you would do it to your like core tournaments.
But my point is, if you do it on the tournaments that no one cares about, it's not going to matter. Like the reason that no one cares about those tournaments is because the course sucks.
The other interesting thing to think about is when you talk about the idea of what like a break is, do you include weeks where there's only a European event? And so technically, if there's a European event on DGN, it's not a break from coverage, but it could be a break of the pros.
Yeah, you could do that.
That's its own thing. You also have, when you have events like U.S. Women's, there isn't an MPO field. So to some fans, that's a break because they're not watching U.S. Women's. They're just really watching MPO. So it's a really tricky, nuanced thing. So that's why when I reference the break numbers being 7 and 9, those are true breaks, which means nobody's playing. There is no coverage whatsoever.
Yeah, I think Gary said it best with it's really the marketing, because when you have a break before a major and there's it's really not even necessarily marketing that's done. Okay, USDGC might do probably the best job of setting the scene where people are going to be posting about it. A lot of times European Open, because the pros start posting because they've arrived in Europe and they're posting from the venue. But when that kind of hype is building around an event, that break really does work to its advantage. But when you got the Cascade Challenge, which isn't a huge event on its own merit, and then you're also not getting some, the Cascade Challenge doesn't have its own event page with a huge following that's pushing out cinematic videos of the venue and highlights, like hyping people up for the Cascade Challenge. So when you're not doing that, then that's where I think it falls flat, because it's like, all right, well, we're gearing up for Pro Tour golf this week, but it's just kind of a normal Pro Tour with a weekend field and whatever. So I think it definitely can flip flop both ways.
Yeah, if you have that off week and it's like a major specifically, I feel like if you're the TD of that major or you're involved with it, that's when you got to reach out to like the podcasts that are, the well-known podcasts, get on there, hype up the event, do all the things you can do to get people excited to watch it, and kind of correlate that with all the social media around everything. And we just want to do a good job of that.
Trevor, I do want to say you're wrong. Cascade Challenge does have an Instagram.
Well, no, I wasn't implying they didn't have an Instagram. Instagram with it. Notice I said Instagram with a massive following.
Well, their last post, so they're popping off.
See you next year.
Oh, 2024 is the last post.
Yeah, so it's still a silver event according to their Instagram. But hey, they got one. 5 posts, 6 posts total.
Yeah,
the trophies, and this is that's it. That's about it.
You should go comment on that from Foundation.
Yeah, so excited for the event. Wait, next year? We missed it?
Can't wait.
I thought it was next weekend.
Yeah, anywho. All right, we got one more topic for our finals. Another fan-submitted topic, kind of piggybacking off of last week's discussion. There's a lot of people chiming in about the Marshall situation. Obviously, that's kind of the hot topic. So this fan wants to know, continuing last week's discussion, should the PDGA require to release Marshall reports after tournament rounds detailing the number of marshals, where they were located, and what calls were made? So is this level of scrutiny helpful, not necessary, after the events we've just seen recently? Hannah, what do you think?
Yeah, so this isn't something I ever even remotely considered or thought about before, but given how crazy the inconsistencies have been, especially in recent years since it's been more publicized, I think it could be a great idea. In theory, it would help hold these officials more accountable and would require an explanation when calls are, quote, missed. And over long term, we could see that it allows us to see trends in calls being made to make sure that no players are being singled out more than they should be, or make sure that marshals aren't just calling calls just to call calls because that's what we're all asking for. Also, if a player knows that the official on their card, let's say, is the marshal with the reputation of calling every time violation, every half second over 30 seconds, then the pros on that card are suddenly way more aware of how long did that take? How am I doing? Like, everything becomes more amplified because nobody wants to get called or penalized. If for some reason the PDGA objects to this because they don't want the data to be released, or why they need to explain then why marshals are given the authority to make calls on their own. How many times do players say they didn't see a call happen or not? If other players on your card have to be the benchmark for officiating, we can't go from 0 to 100 with a marshal watching everything like a hawk without some more accountability. But it would also require that marshals are more spread out on the course and across more than just the lead card. Otherwise, none of it's fair or makes sense to begin with.
Yeah, I think a big core part of this argument is the idea of fairness and what, like, when there's marshals certain places and others, where does it become fair and unfair? I think that's definitely a lot of people's beef with it. Brodie, what do you think about the idea of a marshal report?
Whoever submitted this, I just want to say you are probably a sweetheart. This is never happening. This is la la land. To think that this organization is going to put out information on what they do with our money that we give them is laughable. It just will never happen. I think it actually would be hilarious. I think they'd also probably be very, like, not accurate. I think they would definitely be fudging the numbers for sure. But yeah, the idea that, I mean, other sporting leagues and stuff, they do this, right? They actually, referees after the fact, they can even I think some referees can get fined too for missing certain calls. I know in college football, depending on how well your report card is after your games, that depends on how far you go into the postseason, whether or not you're going to go to a bowl game, whether or not you're going to go to the playoffs. Like, all that really matters. I'm sure Gary has some of that too for refereeing even at like lower levels as well. But yeah, there's no shot the PDGA is ever going to want to put something out there that we can all look at and critique and decide whether or not we think they're doing a good job. They want to go on vacation with the money that we pay them, and they want to have a good time. And they want to sit back, and they just want to watch disc golf, or sometimes watch disc golf because they don't watch it all the time. Sometimes they miss some stuff.
This podcast has to be viewed internally by the PDGA, if they've ever heard it, as just like it's an absolute slander fest in here. Unless PDGA Mike is on, then it
I
just
don't know if it's slander, right? Isn't it
slander?
Yeah, slander is like when you say incorrect stuff.
Well, we have like the vacation comment,
Slam
like
fest.
that's slander. Like, we have no basis for that. I'll say it too. Like,
I've literally seen them take a vacation. One of the guys was at Worlds, was just driving around a golf cart. What do you call that?
I don't know.
He's not working. He's just driving around a golf cart watching
course
disc golf.
maintenance was up.
Yeah, he was supervising.
Well, he didn't do a good job with the freaking bees or hornets or whatever those things were.
That's fair.
That is fair.
Mm.
Good point. Good point. Hunter.
You gotta get those sticks off the fairway, Hunter. Come on, what are you doing out there?
Hunter, any reason for a Marshall?
Oh, I love a good inside joke.
I think. I mean, let's call it what it is. Brodie, as harsh as it might have been, I mean, we've all been to these tournaments. Maybe not all, but the Marshall report would be like, "Oh wow, they were hanging out at Vendor Village until lead card went off, and then them and their 3 best friends walked together." And you're wondering, how do they all get inside the ropes? I have a media pass. I can't even do it. That's what's going on a lot of times. So I don't think that would be the best idea. But I did have a spinoff of this idea, because let's UDisc is gone. We now use the PDGA Live app, right? And in the PDGA Live app, these calls are being reported in a certain way because the score is getting inputted, right? So I think forget the Marshall report, because the Marshall report, yeah, that's not going to happen. It is what it is. Let's start having calls be reported within PDGA Live. So instead, now you have statistics on the entire Pro Tour field, and you can all of a sudden discover that Eric Oakley is only calling foot faults on Cupcake Curtis, and Drew Gibson isn't calling time violation on anyone, but he is filming it within the PDGA Live app to post it later. But you can start seeing like all these different trends, and then the PDGA might be able to open investigations into the fact that for some reason Brodie Smith only calls time violation on Trevor Staub all year. Every time they're on a card, he calls it. And now, now we can start questioning that. But it would also give us the indicator of this Marshall put this call on Kristen, and that's the only call he made all weekend. The PDGA, if they're a great organization, could look into that and say, why is it that you only called one call all weekend? So I don't think we need Marshall reports, but I do think it'd be electric to just have generic reporting where we can just see there was 15 foot faults called all weekend long, and they were made by these 7 people.
It would be electric. That's the only stat I would look at. Forget C1 in regulation. Nobody even knows what putting gain or strokes gain tee to green means, but calls, now that would be fun.
That'd be electric.
Gary, any other thoughts on this?
I think it's crazy. We're asking a governing body in our sport to do something responsible, let alone this complicated. I mean, Doug Bierkis was interviewed about this stuff, and he was asked directly, Marshall report, and he was like, well, we're talking about it. And he also said that the standard is 5 marshals on site at these events. It's one marshal on each main media card. And he said their primary function is to help create a smooth product for broadcast by helping with tough decisions and making other obvious calls. There's also one roaming marshal. There's one marshal as a starter on hole 1. Wonder what he does after everyone started. Roams to the food. And then there's one scoring marshal at the end of the round. He also made a point that he feels like the system has worked pretty well up to this point. And I have a few notes on that. And I guess technically, yes, maybe. We haven't had a lot of situations like this last weekend that have played out. When the Nico situation happened, the marshal handled it pretty well. However, when we talk about pace of play, I disagree that it's been working. When we're talking about the fair enforcement of rules, I disagree that it's been working. But you know what worked well? Or no, you know why it doesn't work well? It's because nobody calls anything. In fact, according to PDGA Rule 812B2, you have to watch your card mates. No one does that either. So everyone's breaking the rules everywhere. And for a marshal's report, I don't think the PDGA has the capacity or means to track that, nor will they track the calls that are made. And to be honest, I don't think they understand the enforcement of their own rules enough to create such a report. The PDGA is going to do what the PDGA does. They're going to talk about it. They're going to think on it. They're going to deliberate it, and nothing real is going to change.
While on vacation.
I will say, I do love Doug Bierkes, and I do think that he's the man for the job. But I also do think that he's got a lot of people below him that are making his job, his life a little bit tough to do what he wants to do.
Yeah, props to him for even coming out and talking about any of it. It's just
Brodie.
Brodie,
that might be one of the worst PGA rules. That needs to just literally be.
It is a crazy rule.
Because when I first got on tour, I was pulling my gray hairs out of the side. I didn't have them at that time. I have a lot more now. But I was pulling my future gray hairs out because the way disc golfers used to play was you would everyone would throw off the tee, and then everyone would walk to whoever's the shortest disc, and the three people would stand behind the person and wait for them to throw, wait for it to hit the ground, and then they would all walk to the next person. They would all stand behind. It made absolutely no sense at all. I'm sure a bunch of people got pissed off at me because I was one of the few people that didn't do that, and I would actually walk to my disc to get ready for my shot, and I'm sure that did piss off a lot of people. But now a lot of people do that, and no one really watches other people play. You shouldn't be. That slows down pace of play immensely if everyone's doing that. Get to your disc, figure out where you're going to throw. So when it's your turn to throw, you throw, and we move on, and we don't play these 4 or 5 hour rounds. People don't have time for that. Disc golf is super small. We're walking like 15,000 feet or something. We're barely walking like a 9-hole course in golf, and yet we play the same time. Putting also takes no time at all in disc golf. Takes way longer in golf. Rounds should be like under 2 hours. And I think the sport would be a lot more exciting, a lot more interesting to watch.
You want to talk about stat keeping? Let's put Garmin's or Whoops on everybody.
Yeah.
And let's find out who's got the slowest average walking paces.
Yeah.
Spicy stuff.
That's perfect coming from the person who the DGPT says is the stat guy. I don't know if you saw that, Trevor, but they listed you as the stat guy.
You're listed on the DGPT's website.
The
stat guy. Where? On their website for the creator challenge.
He's a stat man.
Wait, where are you, Hunter?
I'm the fearless face of Foundation, something along those lines.
The stat guy?
Yeah, it's funny.
I don't think I've ever pulled a stat. Heck, when I do this show, I don't even do stats. You guys do the stats. I just
Edwin's stats is pissed right now.
Yeah. Oh, Edwin, dude, I've got to rub that in.
We have Hunter Thomas, Foundation Disc Golf's fearless front man. Love that.
Okay.
And then Trevor Staub, the stat guy with sneaky good lines. They had AI write that for sure.
Yeah,
that's a ChatGPT special.
Wait, where is this?
Pro Tour is like
that's their main article, man.
Oh, I'm gonna make it my banner on X.
That's what should have been the question: is AI ruining disc golf? That's a legitimate question.
Oh man, that is. When was this posted?
This was like their announcement article.
Brodie
Smith is the ultimate frisbee convert turned disc golf showman.
Showman. I can't. I'm like a failing at my job for not tweeting that out.
Big YouTube present, even bigger arm.
They're fake muscles.
What was I about to say? I have a question about how the PGA Tour does this, because the PGA Tour a lot of times like it's a self-refereed in the sense of like players will call themselves like I think I moved some sand when I pulled my club away.
Correct.
Are there people that watch footage after and are able to make calls? Like can like if Justin Thomas doesn't call himself on something, will it since it's being called on camera, is that call being made from somewhere else?
Yeah.
So I think
like people have gotten like disqualified and stuff because they will, if, for example, if you like report the wrong score, they can go back and look to see how many times you actually hit. There has been times where stuff has happened after you've turned in your scorecard.
Do you remember this?
And you wake up with like a 2-shot penalty.
Do you remember the scandal when I believe it was Lexi Thompson, the ball marking thing where a guy called it in.
She ball marked. She replaced
She marked
the
from the
ball
front
and then placed it from the back.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah.
someone called it in and they found out. Yeah.
That was the point I was going to make, is like, in golf there, yes, it's a gentleman's game, so the theory is you're going to call it on yourself anyways, but you also know you're on camera. There's no way around it. There's cameras everywhere, so you don't know at any moment someone could be watching. So you better call it, because like, if I don't, someone might on me. Whereas
it is definitely a different presence when there's towers everywhere with big cameras.
It's just integrity. There is no forced integrity, because to Brodie's point, how the sport should work is it should be able to be self-refereed of, hey, I think I kicked my disc. I think that was a foot fault. I think my foot landed before I threw that putt. I think I foot faulted. I think whatever. I already know I have 30 seconds. But in disc golf, it's like, well, if no one saw it, did it really get called?
I will say this. I lost a little bit. I like Andrew Marweed a lot. I've had some good conversations with him. He's always been a nice guy to play with. I did lose a little respect when his comment on the Facebook of his foot fault was oops, because when you step on a disc.
Yeah.
Has
there been a self-call in disc golf?
Yes. Yes. I've played with many people that have self-called stuff.
There you go.
For
Not
sure.
Everybody's ran off Juno.
And hey, shout out to all the people that like don't even put you in a weird spot, because there's times where it's like, oh my God, that disc never crossed in bounds. And the person just keeps walking past where they should take it. And they're like, all right, well, I guess we're going to have an awkward conversation. Yeah. So shout out to all the people that like don't try to push the boundaries and like just play fairly and just go to the spot that they should and don't even put it on us. A la like Paige Pierce when she turned around being like, did I miss the Mando? It's like, shit, you knew it missed the Mando. Went over the rope.
You're just turning around to see anyone else see if I missed the Mando.
Yeah. What was that, man? What the heck?
Crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a bug in my eye.
And really, like to prove your point, Hunter, really the only way to really go about this is more fans on the course, more cameras, because then basically once a cheater, always a cheater.
Yeah, not even camera towers, but cell phones, right?
Correct. And it will scare people. I mean, it scares people into being nice. Some of these people are super nice to the fans and autos and stuff doing signatures, because they don't want to be, they want their disc to sell. So we just got to scare them into making the right calls.
Forced integrity.
All right, final topic here. Hunter and Gary, can't change the screen, so everybody's going to stick around. Final topic here. So other sports often consider a certain player the face of the league. Basketball has had players like Michael Jordan and LeBron. Baseball had Bonds and now Shohei. Football has had Brady and Mahomes. Sometimes it's a unanimous conclusion, but leagues can go through a stretch where such a player might not exist. Golf found itself in that spot when Tiger departed from the tour originally. Does disc golf have a true face of the Pro Tour? How many players have ever taken on that role during our sports history? Gary, would you like to go first or second?
I'll go first.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think 100% disc golf has some face of the games. If you look back before like 1990, I mean, there's people you could argue were like the face of the game. Ed Hedrick created the sport. I wouldn't say just because you create the sport, you're the face of the game, that kind of thing. Once the majors started becoming a thing, maybe you could make an argument like that Harold Duvall became the face of the sport because he was the earliest like winner of 2 titles and kind of went about. But I don't think you really have faces of the game until you hit like 1990 and 1991, because that's when our first like icons emerged in terms of like the playing of the sport of disc golf. That's when Elaine King took over the FPO field, kind of dominating every event that she went to, rattling off 5 world championships in 7 years. And over on the MPO side, we don't have to even say his name. We all know Ken Climo just came in and obliterated the field, establishing dominance, winning 9 worlds in a row and 3 more later. And his only real competition during that time was like, early 2000s, Barry Schultz. Then you got like Feldberg and Doss near the end there, putting up a fight. But so you've got Climo and you've got Elaine. And then you can kind of make an argument that, after Elaine's reign, Juliana Korver came in and she kind of took over as the face, like the FPO side. She temporarily passed that torch off to like Des Redding. And then Valerie Jenkins came in. But we really didn't see like another dominant force since Elaine until we got to Paige Pierce, who kind of reigned as the face of the FPO field for quite a while. jumping back to the MPO, after Climo's departure, the world kind of was looking for somebody. There was a few years where it could have been a few different people, but we really didn't get that icon until a young Paul McBeth emerged, taking over the sport once again. So you fast forward that to now, and you've kind of got Paul McBeth and Paige Pierce who have passed the torch over. And without a doubt, I think that Gannon Buhr is the face of the MPO field and Kristen is the face of the FPO field. You can make an argument that internationally, maybe Kristen is the bigger face of disc golf with all the stuff she has going on. But in summary, I'd say that there were 6 different people who you could argue were the faces of the FPO division, but really only 4 people for the MPO division.
Okay. Hunter, are you in agreement there? Do you think Gannon is the face of the league?
No. So first off, I think the tough part the Pro Tour's in is the face of the league. There's only one league, MPO and FPO. So there's not the DGPT and the FDGPT. There's just the Pro Tour. So really, I think there's been 2 faces of the sport so far, and that's been Ken Climo and Paul McBeth. And I think right now you can argue Kristen, but I think we're at a faceless sport right now, because if you want to look at Gannon Buhr, I think he's emerging as the face of the sport. But I mean, you can go to any Pro Tour event you want, and if Simon Lizotte is 10 cards back, he's going to have the crowd. Even to this point, Paul McBeth is still going to pull a decent crowd. Gannon doesn't have that pop quite yet. Honestly, Anthony Barella is closer to that pop. You walk out there and you see the AB jerseys left and right. So right now, I think we're in a little bit of a faceless time in the sport. I think that Gannon is most likely the next one, but I think we had Ken Climo, then we had Paul McBeth. And if you look at the ratio, because I think there's players nowadays who move more plastic number-wise than Paul moved in 2015. But if you look at percentages, that's not true, because in percentages, if you weren't throwing what Paul McBeth was throwing, you were in the minority. And that was just period. There's no one doing that right now. And I think you can go back to Ken Climo. It was probably a very similar thing. I wasn't around in that era, but it was probably a similar thing. That's what the face of the sport is, right? When Paul McBeth left from Innova to Discraft went from being a very, not a very small retailer because they had Ultimate, but they all of a sudden became the biggest manufacturer, the face of disc golf, because the face of disc golf went from Innova to Discraft. That's the type of ground shaking. Gannon Buhr went from Prodigy to Discmania, and it's not like Discmania all of a sudden is everyone's bag. So we don't have a face currently. I do think that Gannon Buhr is the next one, but right now you could argue with Simon Lizotte's YouTube presence. You could even argue Brodie Smith's YouTube presence is more of a face of the sport, in 2021 than a lot of pros would be who are winning. So I think right now we're faceless, but Gannon Buhr is probably next up.
Yeah. That I think ultimately I'll give Hunter the nod here. I do agree with that. I think that calling Gannon the face of the sport is really, it's one of those things where his statistics almost force that narrative to kind of like present itself. But when you think about the influence that he has, it's just not there. And I think that's what so many other sports struggle with, right? We had Jordan Spieth post Tiger had one of the most dominant stretches in golf, and people still weren't willing to call him the face of golf there in an era that was also had other young emerging talent in it as well, such as Ricky Fowler, Justin Thomas. So I think it's so difficult when you have precedent, because Gary, you mentioned the players, the Ken Climos, the Pauls. When you have that precedent, you have to match that if you're going to be on the same platform. And I think some sports set themselves in a place where it's almost unmatchable, right? Like, how are we ever going to have somebody that has a grip on golf the way Tiger Woods did, right? So maybe it almost makes it impossible. And same with disc golf. Maybe having somebody grip disc golf the way that Paul McBeth did, maybe that won't happen again. Maybe our sport just isn't in a place where it can. I think Kristen would honestly almost be closer because of just the way she dominates that field, I think, and her brand image as well. But it's an interesting one. I don't know, like I don't know what it would take for somebody like, I guess the answer would be like, if Simon was a dominant major champion,
if Simon
Lizotte
the guy, was Gannon Buhr. Like if Gannon Buhr had Simon's YouTube channel, he would be the face of the sport. No doubt about it. Because you'd have the 1-2.
A good point to that is just this past weekend at the Cosmic Open, the conditions were maybe the worst I've ever seen being played in, and there were still people following Simon playing against people he was crushing, 12 strokes ahead of. I thought Harry Duvall was going to do it for me.
We love Harry Duvall. It's an interesting one. Comment down below what you think. Is there a true face right now? What do you think on that whole argument? Does somebody have to match or eclipse Paul's influence or Ken's influence to achieve that spot again? Let us know what you think. Thanks for tuning in this week. We've got the Cascade.
This is back-to-back weekends. You've snubbed me of my victory winner's lap. I don't even want it now. But 2 weeks in a row, I've won. Back-to-back, I've been snubbed. I just let the record show.
I just listened to you talk all day, so I don't, I guess
unbelievable.
I guess I was over it. I guess if I ask you now, you won't do it.
No, I don't want it now. Okay. I don't want sloppy seconds.
Comment down below if you actually wanted to hear. Maybe Hunter will comment his victory lap down below.
No,
he won't.
They don't get it.
And if you're watching this,
what is that, Brodie?
No free ads.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, you back in Risk?
He muted himself.
You're muted. You're muted.
Come find me, world domination.
Oh, you want to know? You want to know what's actually back? Uh-oh.
What is going on right now? Does everybody else have a show and tell?
Yeah, baby.
Please, everyone find Hunter and raid him.
Tower defense is the way, guys.
Actual call to action. If you have not seen Tuesday's video, whenever you're watching this now on our main channel, go watch it, or don't even watch it and like that video. We have to bump the likes so that Connor has to play this challenge we did with Silas. It'd be the funniest thing ever.
As of filming, we're at 1.2 thousand likes with 4,000 views.
Fast.
With 4,000 views. So
it's a
we
lock.
only have to get to 8,000. So ratio wise,
8,000.
I think that was what he said.
There was like 2 goals. Anyways, go watch the video. Go like the video. Thanks for watching this week's debate night. We'll see you next time.